We are here to help.
One sentence.
We buy a homeowner's policy and never give it another thought until something happens. Life brings changes, and our coverage needs can change. The smart thing to do is get the answers and level up our insurance to make sure we're totally protected.
That's the Insurance Extra Point. Get out there and make something good happen today by calling Guahan Insurance Services at 475-1162 or visit us at the Camacho Landmark Center in Tamuning.
Protesters in Idaho gather for a mask bonfire.
You can ignite a pretty spirited argument for and against rules to wear a mask during the pandemic. But in Idaho, protesters stepped it up by igniting the masks themselves. At least 100 people gathered at the front of the Idaho Capitol Saturday to burn masks in a protest against measures taken to limit infections and deaths caused by COVID-19. Idaho's Republican Governor Brad Little never issued a statewide mask mandate, but 7 counties and 11 cities have these mandates in place. Some feel mask mandates are a restriction of their freedoms. Health experts contend they help slow the spread of the disease. Sal Giangrasso, Fox News.
And in sports, Kyle Larson got his first victory of the NASCAR Cup Series season at the Pennzoil 400 at Las Vegas Motor Speedway on Sunday.
Going to shake up the points. Going to put Hamlin to the top, Keselowski, and then Larson. As Kyle Larson wins Las Vegas.
Hell yeah, guys. Great job.
Final call courtesy of Fox. Brad Keselowski placed second. Kyle Busch came home third, while Denny Hamlin secured fourth. Plus, Sunday's NBA All-Star Game missing 2 selections after a pair of Sixers were placed in COVID protocols. Fox's Ryan Mayer has this story.
The Philadelphia 76ers 2 All-Star selections not able to participate in the game Sunday after being in close contact with a barber who tested positive for COVID. Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons both placed into isolation as part of the league's COVID protocol Sunday after the barber located in the Philly area was found to have tested positive. The 2 Sixers stars now in quarantine. The timetable for their return depends on testing over the next several days. The Sixers' first matchup after the All-Star break is set for Thursday, March 11th in Chicago against the Bulls.
That's Fox's Ryan Mayer. I'm Mary Corsetti, and this is Fox News.
Half a day, this is Honey. Here at APL, our expertise and extensive network can help you grow your business and reach out to more global markets. As a responsible carrier, APL is also committed to a sustainable future, whether it's protecting the environment or investing our efforts in giving back to the community. Our dedicated teams in Guam, Saipan, and on U.S. mainland are here to support you. Call 588-4651 or visit apl.com.
You've got a job to do. Having the right equipment for the job is critical, and East West Rental has the exact tools you need. Get it done faster with the right stuff, whether it's landscaping tools, concrete tools, lifts, trucks, lights, generators, trench boxes, welders, tents, tables, and chairs. They're here to help you tackle any project you're working on, big or small. Open Monday to Saturday, 7 to 5, closed Sundays. Find what you're looking for at East West Rental Center in Upper Tumon or call 646-1463.
The vaccine is officially here, and we aren't just talking about the COVID vaccine, but a financial vaccine at Bank Pacific. We may not be doctors, but we can help you with your financial health. Whether to take advantage of today's crazy low rates, or just a local bank that has your back. At Bank Pacific, we want to help make 2021 your best year yet. Because for 66 years, where others put branches, we place roots, and we're rooting for you. Equal housing lender, member FDIC.
Sunday brunch at Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro is back. Come and enjoy Mezcla's true taste of Guam. Open for 2 seatings at 10:30 a.m. and 12:30 p.m. $28.95 for adults and $14.95 for kids 5 to 11 years old. Call 479-2652 or 2653 for reservations.
Welcome to Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie, the only show on talk radio where common sense is a lot more common. Phone lines are now open at 888-TALK. That's 888-8255. And now, The Point proudly brings you Tall Tales with Senator Bob Klitzkie.
A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Boy, does it feel good to say that after 2 days of no tall tales.
Absolutely, Bob.
Here we are embarking on 5 whole days of tall tales. It just doesn't get any better than that. Okay, let's jump right into Zemi Ikutni. That's my bilingual play on words. Zemi Ikutni, literal translation, press the meat. Tall Tales translation, meet the press. But it's better than Chuck Todd's Meet the Press because I don't pretend to be objective. Fair and balanced are not my middle names. I will give you the conservative, constitutional, libertarian, classic liberal approach as much as I can. If that's what you're interested in, you are definitely in the right place. If you're over on the left and that's not what you're interested in, you are definitely in the right place because you need this more than anybody else. Okay, so I look at the editorials from each of the papers, ordinarily criticize them roundly, try to determine which of the two was the better, and award that editorial the coveted blue star, a mark of excellence that is so treasured in the print media that if you were to stand outside the editorial boardrooms of the newspaper that is the awardee for that particular day, you could hear, shortly after I made the announcement, you could hear champagne corks popping. So, unfortunately, the Daily News doesn't want to play anymore. They'd much rather run boilerplate from USA Today instead of doing local editorials, even under the new ownership. Kaleo, we were pretty glad when you bought the paper. Our patience is beginning to wear thin.
Here's my op-ed. Get rid of the editor.
Okay.
Period.
That's your editorial opinion.
That's my editorial opinion.
All right. Well, today we've got Kurt Bardella, a Korean American, and he's a member of USA Today's Board of Contributors and a former Republican.
And apparently an arsonist, too.
Uh-huh. He was a spokesperson and senior advisor for the House Oversight and Government Reform Committee. It sounds like a never-Trumper, doesn't he?
What is that, a clinic call for Rush Limbaugh? Oh, yeah, I'm a former Republican and longtime listener.
Yeah.
But now let me insult you.
So he says, it's open season. We're under a siege as Trump Republicans applaud racist provocation against Asian Americans.
See, arsonists.
China virus. That's the next word in the editorial. Those words were once again uttered by the twice impeached former president of the United States last week in Orlando, and as has become the status quo, they were met with rambunctious applause from the Republican Party faithful. For the better part of a year, the highest power in the land, the person with the loudest microphone in the land, repeatedly used phrases China virus and Kung flu to describe COVID-19. How awful.
I don't think I heard that second one, but that first one.
Yeah. Well, it makes kind of makes sense to call it the China virus. That's where it came from. So since it came from China, it would be more politically correct to call it the Hungarian virus, right? Let me tell you something. Anybody who looks like me knows exactly what that means. What the intent of using those words actually is. Make no mistake about it. It's 100% racism, and for people who say it, and the people who look past it, and the people who don't immediately denounce it, and denounce it every time that it is said, you are complicit actors in spreading the kind of racism that ultimately has escalated into violence and murder. Yeah, I see why this guy's on the USA Today editorial board of contributors. I fear the violence against Asian Americans will only get worse. I fear people like me who have a platform, who have been the responsibility an opportunity to speak out could be the next victims of violence. It's a fear that I carry with me everywhere I go, every knock at the door, every time I get out of the car to fill up my gas tank, every time I run to the grocery store. It's a fear that will always be there as long as people who are in power, who seek power, seek fit to use racism as their preferred instrument of war. And the events of January 6th should tell us anything. It's that the members of the cult of Trump take very literally the extreme and dangerous things that Donald Trump and his fellow arsonists of democracy. They aren't just empty words. They're directives. They're orders. And these white nationalists are willing to act on them. According to Stop AAPI Hate, which tracks attacks against Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders, there have been more than 3,000 reports of racism and discrimination against Asian Americans in the past year. 2 weeks ago, a man was caught on tape attacking an Asian American in Flushing, a main hub for Asian American community. An 84-year-old Asian American was attacked. Now they're starting to get my attention. When you start talking about attacking people in their 80s, that's a serious matter. Well, the rise in violence prompted the state of California to commit $1.4 million towards helping Asian Americans report hate crimes. The Biden administration released an executive order acknowledging the federal government must recognize that it has played a role in furthering these xenophobic sentiments through the action of political leaders, including references to the COVID-19, the Wuhan virus is what I've been calling. Does that make me a racist, Jose?
Apparently so.
Yeah. The Wuhan virus pandemic by the geographic location of its origin. Such statements have stoked unfounded fears and perpetuated stigma against Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders and have contributed to increasing rates of bullying, harassment, and hate crimes against AAPI persons. I wonder how he knows that. It's a symbolic first step and a meaningful one after watching the highest office holder in the land use the White House microphone to hurl racial slurs against the AAPI community for a year. But the reality is we need more than just symbolic gestures and occasional mentions. Asian Americans, just last week, a 36-year-old Asian American man walking down in the street in New York City was attacked and stabbed in the torso. A family in Orange County is the target of habitual harassment, so much so that neighbors have taken to literally gardening the family's home. I was talking to a college student the other day who shared with me the story of how she was walking downtown in San Francisco and a man came up to her and just spit on her. Just the other day, after appearing on MSNBC, I got a 2-word message from a person that read, "Retard Chinaman." The fact is, Asian Americans are not safe in their homes. They aren't safe walking down the street. They aren't safe on the subway. They aren't safe at restaurants. They aren't safe anywhere. In 2021, and one of the two major parties in America is applauding the provocation of hate crimes against the AAPI community. The Republican Party has declared open season on Asian Americans. Our blood is on their hands.
Oh, now we get the reason for the editorial. That last sentence.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, this gets me angry when I see people write stuff like that.
Yeah, really. Yeah, well, we'll give the guy high marks for hyperbole. I don't give him high marks at all for facts. These are things that are potentially products of his own imagination. And it wouldn't surprise me, you know, nowadays you got to figure out some way to be a victim, and he's found his. So there he is.
You know where it's dangerous to be an Asian these days? Hong Kong, Taiwan,
yeah,
North Korea.
Exactly.
And sometimes the southern Philippines.
Yeah, really. Okay, let's go to the Post. And here's what the Post has to say. State of the Island. It's not a speech. It's an opportunity to lead. There are moments when a speech isn't merely a collection of words meant to inform. In times of chaos, it can inspire calm. When war is being waged worldwide, it can end violence. Amid an economic depression, it can show employers and employees a path to prosperity. While we certainly aren't expecting Governor Leon Guerrero to act like Lincoln at Gettysburg, or Reagan in Berlin, or Biden in Washington, well, maybe she will act like Biden in Washington. Talk about great speech makers. Tonight's State of the Island address needs to be more than a book report about 2020, and that's exactly what it's going to be. Yeah. Guam and the rest of the globe have been fighting an invisible enemy, as our Magahaga has repeatedly said for a year now. During that time, our island's much-needed tourist industry has seen its customer base dwindle to almost nothing. Even rosy projections in 2021 would mean upwards of a 90% decline in visitor arrivals. Tens of thousands of workers have been put on a welfare system, hoping and praying a sustainable solution can be found before federal aid ends. Hundreds of businesses have closed for good, and hundreds more are fighting to keep their heads above water. These are reasons that Governor Leon Guerrero should focus on real policy initiatives during her address. Hundreds of millions of dollars in new federal subsidies are almost guaranteed at this point. How will Adelup use this investment? It would be good to hear that a critical and decimated agency such as GVB can now be made whole, but including private sector in this economic stimulus would be even better. Whether through expanded efforts to bring visitors back safely or to increase benefits and eligibility of limited relief programs, there's enough money from this latest congressional round to help more than just the government coffers. Guam continues to be one of the top performers nationwide on Wuhan virus vaccination rates, and that's a testament to our public servants and the public itself. Even with limitations of who can receive the potentially life-saving medicine, supply is not meeting demand. A third manufacturer can now offer its single-dose vaccine, which has the strange name of Johnson & Johnson. Wouldn't you think one Johnson would be enough, Jose?
I'm going to leave that one alone, sir.
All right. Okay. And we hope the governor explains how this will help us achieve herd immunity by Liberation Day, as previously announced. All workers who have been labeled essential for an entire year should be shown a plan that leads to their vaccination. Local healthcare professionals should feel confident that any increased workload caused by these decisions will be met with more infrastructure, equipment, and human resources. This pandemic has also taught our island a harsh lesson. An economy reliant so heavily on visitor activity is vulnerable and can be put on to a standstill during a global health emergency. This legislature and this administration have already laid the groundwork for local industries to take off, can make us more independent of circumstances beyond our control. Aquaculture, green technologies, captive insurance, cannabis, commercial drones, and fulfillment centers have already been incentivized or prioritized by law or executive order. Now is the time to truly get these economic engines up and running. Without a doubt, the governor's been given the challenge to lead through an unprecedented time. The island has made great strides to get back spikes into to beat back spikes in Wuhan virus. We've all come together to keep our Cabrera score low, below 1.0 week after week. But sometimes instead of progress, it feels like we're treading water. Tonight is a chance to remind us that we will make it to shore. If there's hope to hold on to, history shows our island and her people can withstand anything. If there's faith that vision will be met with action, 2020 has proven neighbors will go above and beyond to pitch on. The past year has been tough for us all. The State of the Island address is the opportunity to show us all how we're going to strive and thrive again. Yeah, we need something like Franklin Delano Roosevelt. We have nothing to fear but fear itself. Or Winston Churchill, we shall fight them in the cities. We shall fight them on the beaches. We shall fight them on their landing grounds, but we shall never give up. Yeah, an inspirational system, inspirational speech instead of, well, last year I did a lot of things and I really protected you from Wuhan virus. That's what we're going to get, I'm afraid. Okay, looks like I got a call coming in here. I'm going to start the card in just a second. I don't have a call coming in. Jose, I guess people really like calling in and talking to you. That's your third call today.
It's the same person, but he's concerned because I'm going to check with the text, but it sounds like we're broadcasting something else on the air. So if anybody is watching online, can check their radios real quick and let us know what they're hearing.
We're not broadcasting Tall Tales?
I don't know. We got to find that out, though. Just one person's been calling in, same person.
Okay. Yeah. Well, thank you
for But it's a very credible person.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you for your help, mystery caller. Let's hope we can get to the bottom of that. Okay, today's card. Oh, I didn't bring my my program summary with me, but yeah, I think I got it here. Yeah, we start out. Steve Ignacio says he still doesn't know what's cooking at Jerry's Kitchen. Steve had prior law enforcement experience. The Keystone Cops. Beep, beep. We've got a couple heavyweights on the card. We've got the Saipan Slammer versus Kid Shea. The AG gave some ground on the ACLU case, but it may prove to be a gambit. And there's a woke vocabulary lesson on the card. So those are the big four coming up here. That's Steve Ignacio, Cabrera versus Shea, AG versus ACLU, and Social Justice Newspeak versus English. So let's start out with Steve Ignacio. Okay, I just got a WhatsApp. Tall Tales not on the radio. So from an extremely reliable source. A dedicated listener. So I guess you Facebookers are the really lucky folks out there in Radio Land. Okay, this is a story that ran in PDN, I think, on Saturday. A video captured on a business security system in the area shows a Jeep that crashed into Jerry Kitchen February 25 moments before the accident. The video shows the Jeep heading northbound on Marine Corps Drive, passing other vehicles and crossing over the southbound lanes, then going airborne in the parking lot prior to colliding into the businesses. Shortly thereafter, an officer arrived and cited the vehicle for illegal parking. The video had been given to the Guam Police Department as evidence. Quote, I know that a follow-up investigation with our highway investigators was ordered by Chief Ignacio to see if they can obtain any surveillance footage, said world-renowned tap dancer Paul Tapao, Guam Police Department spokesman. As of today, I don't know if Highway Patrol is in possession of such footage. Why should you, Paul Tapao? You're only the spokesman for the department. Why don't you learn this phrase? I'm going to have to circle back to you on that. You know, if you're going to be the spokesman, we expect you to have the up-to-date information, not the ability to hem and haw, tap dance, and feign ignorance so that you don't have to answer the hard questions. Paul Tapao has described the accident as a single-operator auto crash. It was classified as an auto that ran off the roadway and no arrests were made. Well, that's a great classification. An auto ran off the roadway.
Where do you cuff the tires?
Yeah. So just let me think of some other scenarios that might be sort of similar. Let's say an airplane, instead of landing at the airport, landed up at what we used to call Harmon Field. How would we classify that? An airplane missed the runway? Yeah. This whole thing just it's so obvious that this is so obvious a case of Mokiba, something we all know but agree not to talk about. Except it's not all of us that know, it's folks in the police department know, but they're not going to talk about it because the implications are too serious. So instead of being upright, we're playing the great stall game. You know, maybe if we stall long enough, they'll go away or they'll forget it. Police cited the driver of the Jeep. Now, it's not police, it's Officer Champion, right? Who is a real champion of justice. Officer Champ for imprudent driving means the driver of the car either misstepped the accelerator or drove inattentively, according to Tapao. That's pretty inattentive to cross over the other lane, cross the median, cross the other lane, go airborne, cross a parking lot, and run all the way into a restaurant. Well, let's take a short break here, and we'll come back to Officer Tapao.
The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts of Guam Training.
Hi, I'm Jerry Roberts, and every day on The Ray Gibson Show, I get to comment on the incredibly diverse, fun, challenging, sometimes frustrating, often exciting, but always interesting world of work. I hope you'll be there with us.
You can find daily transcripts of The Extra Point at guamtraining.com. Tune in every weekday morning at 7:20 for The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts, brought to you by Guahan Insurance Services and First Hawaiian Bank on 93.3 The Point.
76 Circle K, the Subaki Tower, and Spa Ayalam bring you another staycation. We are celebrating Mom and all she does. Win a 2-night stay at the luxurious Subaki Tower, get pampered by Spa Ayalam, and enjoy a delicious lunch and dinner at Casa Oceano. All you have to do is purchase $35 or more in 76 fuel and enter to win a staycation fit for a mom. The more you gas, the more chances of winning. Visit 76circlekguam.com or any Circle K location for more information.
And now, back to Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie, the one radio show politicians don't want you to listen to. Call now, 888-TALK. That's 888-8255.
Okay, so once again, setting the scene. About 11 o'clock at night, a car was driving northbound on Marine Corps Drive. Obviously wanted to take a hard left, took a hard left, jumped over the median, drove across the southbound lane of traffic, over the curb, across the parking lot, and into Jerry Restaurant, which, by the way, is not a drive-in, was not a drive-in restaurant until this happened. And the chief of police has pretty much come along with the classic, like he's a flagman, keep moving, keep the traffic moving, there's nothing to see here, keep moving. When obviously something very serious happened here. More serious is the fact that there were passengers in the car, and one of the passengers was a police officer. But we kind of had to, we didn't find that out right away. That somebody else had to dig that out. And then the police officer's grandfather, Senator Pito Terlahi, said that his granddaughter was not involved in the accident. She arrived after the crash. Tapao said that although the damage was dramatic, the crash itself simply, there's the key word, simply involved a car running off the road. I get where the community is coming from, Tapao said, adding that the optics look bad, but I expect to hear more from the police now that the report is out. He's waiting to work out negotiations with insurance companies for damage to his business. So it's time our chief of police decided to act like a cop. Now, I've talked a little bit more about our chief of police here. You know, we had this allegation of marshals fixing warrants, marshals at the Superior Court fixing warrants, all of the fallout from the Mayor Blas trial. And our chief of police said, well, there's nothing I can do there. I don't have jurisdiction over the judiciary, which is just dead wrong. Not only dead wrong, but dumb. And I sent a sunshine law to the chief asking for all public records that show that he doesn't have jurisdiction at the judiciary. 4 days later, I get a reply back saying there are no public records. So, but chief just, you know, in order to kind of avoid controversy, appears willing to say almost anything. Well, you know, I don't have jurisdiction there. The chief, not long after becoming chief, told the media that he thought someone was trying to steal his motorcycle out of his carport, out of his garage. So he called a precinct and asked that they do patrol checks on his house. And, you know, that isn't what chiefs of police do. They don't ask for extra police services for themselves. You know, I phrase it as public servants shouldn't use their office to scratch their own back. And that's exactly what he was doing. Another sunshine law request asking for the time and dates of the patrol checks on the chief's house. He does a document dump and sends all the records for a 10-day period. When he was asked about Mark Torrey, the police officer that was involved in the Albert Piolo shooting, asked if Torrey could come back to the police force. He just Joe Biden. Well, you know, he hasn't applied. I don't know. I'll just have to. What am I doing here? I'll just have to wait and see. So, how long does it take a chief to make up his mind whether he wants a police officer on the police force who, during the time he was a police officer, got so drunk that he blacked out at the time that another police officer was killed with his own weapon, not the dead one, but Torrey's own weapon? How long would it take him to decide that? Well, I'm going to ask Paul Tapao how he would explain that. And then we come up with the rash of gambling, poker gambling, That's when the chief decided that he didn't have jurisdiction over the judiciary. Now we have a story. Staffers alleged to have participated in illegal gambling at the Power Authority. That's another tip to Joanne Brown. So I'll just take this whole story here. Beneventi confirmed he received a letter from Utilities Oversight Chair Clint Rigel, who received a copy of an anonymous letter received by Senator Joanne Brown. The writer of the anonymous letter alleges there is gambling going on at GPA, and the investigation should start by looking into the HR division. This behavior has got to stop in our government, and these employees need to make their priority work for the people and earn their high pay and not working to organize gambling, according to the letter. They are now looking at all allegations that were made. And again, similarly, there's due process that we have to go through. I really like that, Jose, when someone is alerted to misconduct in the agency and the very first words out of his mouth, well, you know, we have to due process. We have to be fair here. I want to hear somebody say, we're going to go out and catch the bad people.
I concur.
Until you catch them, there's no need to talk about due process. Yeah. This is John Beneventi, the GM at Power Authority. They're now looking at all the allegations that were made. And again, similarly, there is a due process that we have to go through, Beneventi said. And it all begins with an internal auditor to do an independent evaluation of all this and, of course, report to myself and also the CCU Audit Committee chairperson, which is, again, involved in all of these internal issues that we have. So don't worry, we'll find some way of obfuscating what's going on. The allegations of gambling on duty, online and on duty, first came to light when Senator Brown also received an anonymous tip about airport officers. Guam International Airport Authority General Manager John Kanata wouldn't fold on giving specifics because of an ongoing investigation. Through the Civil Service Commission documents, KUM was able to confirm Officer 1, Airport Officer 1, Jericho Santos, was fired and admitted to online gambling while on duty. But his case file revealed that he had built a Guam gambling group of more than 250 other players, including other airport officers, players from the Peace Department, Guam Fire Department, Superior Court Marshals, and members of the National Guard. His case file also indicated that he became involved with gambling at Poker Brothers from a police officer. Chief of Police Steve Ignacio confirmed he had opened an administrative investigation into a single officer after being informed about the ongoing investigation. So you got it at the airport, the police department, you got it all over the place, but don't worry. Steve has opened an internal investigation of one officer. So far, those have been key ones that have received so far, and you know, much to my surprise, I really don't know this was an issue in the government of Guam. Yeah, there's so much you don't know. Apparently, it's kind of blown up. It's extending like it has tentacles that are extending to other operations of the government, and I think that's unfortunate. That's from Brown. Allegations of illegal gambling have also extended to the Port Authority, as General Manager Rory Espicio issued a press release confirming that several port police officers are allegedly involved in an illegal gambling matter that currently is the subject of an FBI investigation. So, you know, you got gambling all over the place. You've got airborne cars. I suppose the FAA. Steve doesn't have jurisdiction over airborne cars. That would be the FAA. Yeah. And he's taken dramatic action. He started an internal investigation of one officer. Well, maybe we need more patrol checks on his vehicle. Catch that guy that's trying to steal his motorcycle.
Maybe it's a new investigative method where you close the case first and then you go backwards and investigate.
Yeah, close the case first. That way the perpetrator has a false sense of security, right? Yeah. Okay, next on the card here, let's hear that bell again. The bell, yeah. Yeah. And now for a 15-round heavyweight championship of Guam, we have Kid Cabrera versus, as you were, Saipan Cabrera, Slammin' Cabrera versus Saipan Cabrera versus Slammin' Shea. And in this corner, wearing the black trunks, we have Saipan Cabrera. And in this corner, wearing white trunks, we have Slammin' Shea. Ladies and gentlemen, these are two of the toughest fighters in professional boxing. I would be surprised if this one goes to the decision. I expect there will be a knockout within the first 6 rounds. They're both hard punchers, and they both have glass jaws. All right, so this is a story from KOAM. Things came to a head after concerns were raised about how public health was handling a woman's case that was false positive. She and her children were forced into isolation even though they tested negative twice. And the lady has filed suit against public health, according to another argument. Cabrera said everyone is entitled to their own opinions, but not their own facts. And when you try and say things and try to advocate for one person using incorrect facts, you put the whole community in danger and at risk, Cabrera said. And that's a pattern we have seen from this one particular physician. And this has been ongoing throughout this entire pandemic. Only one physician is speaking out of turn. All the rest of them know what a horse's head looks like on the foot of his bed. Excuse me, the foot of their bed. But having one person, let's see, when that one person that one particular physician advocates for one person not using correct facts, it puts the whole community at risk. Correct facts like that lady tested negative twice and her kids are still in quarantine. That particular physician is Dr. Tom Shea, who Dr. Cabrera says has been taking jabs at him. Uh-oh. Taking jabs at Dr. See what I mean about... Yeah, he's lucky it's just jabs instead of a right cross. Yeah. Who's been taking jabs at him in the Department of Public Health and Social Services during the public health state of emergency. And more recently regarding a false positive Wuhan virus patient case. Yeah, well, they get to, they do the jabbing at the beginning, like boxers do. Come out in the very beginning, left jab here, left jab there, just kind of see how the other side handles his mitts. But then they get into some heavy-duty swinging. And we saw this especially toward the end of July and early August. This is Cabrera yet. And what happened back then? Cabrera questioned, we had a spike. We had a spike, and I'm not saying he, meaning Shea, I'm not saying he caused the spike. I'm saying that you can't contribute to anything that pushes the spike up until, as a community, we have to do our best to help ensure that we protect as many people as possible. Cabrera said, drawing the laurel wreath a little tighter around his shoulders. Cabrera publicly called Shea a narcissist. Yeah, I don't know if I told you my story about the narcissist, Jose, but I worked with this guy in a political campaign one time, and, you know, everybody thought, man, that guy is such a narcissist. And so I approached him about it, and I said, you know, everybody here thinks you're a narcissist, but I'm going to help you out. I've got a book here on narcissism that I'm going to let you take. Maybe if you read the book, it'll help you. I don't think I need it. I don't think you know what you're doing, but it's free, so I'll take it, he said. A few days later, he kind of tossed the book back at me and he said, this book you gave me about narcissism is no good at all. I got halfway through the second chapter and I haven't seen my name yet. Yeah. So Cabrera publicly called Shea a narcissist. It could have been worse. He could have called him a racist. There's just no coming back from that. And then a quote from Cabrera. It's personal for me because he makes these memes about me. Oh, I have to confess, I haven't seen any of the memes. Have you, Jose?
I think so. I'm not sure.
Well, do me a favor and send me a couple of them.
I've
okay?
seen some funny ones, but I don't know if they're about Dr. Cabrera.
Yeah. Well, nobody enjoys a good meme about a public figure more than I do. It's personal for me because he makes these memes about me. Boy, I could see why anybody would be angry about that. I remember one time when a likeness of me appeared on Guam Blog. I don't know if you remember that one about Lou in the kitchen.
Oh no, I never saw that one.
Yeah, it's there. It goes back a ways.
Someone made one about me a long time ago.
Who?
Someone made one about me on Guam Blog too.
Okay.
I was like, I didn't know you guys knew me.
Yeah. Well, when I saw that, it wasn't a very attractive depiction of my physical characteristics, but I laughed like heck when I saw it. This is what Cabrera said. It's personal for me because he makes these memes about me. He makes memes about my position, and this affects my family. I see the launching here of the V word. It's not victory. This affects all my relatives that are here on Guam, in Saipan, and all the Mariana Islands, and I'm fed up with it. Yeah. I am absolutely fed up with it, and he needs to be called out. Yeah, it's a sad story, Doc. He says he's been on Guam for blah, blah, how many years, and has done all this blah, blah stuff. Now, I've heard Dr. Shea isn't anywhere near as proud of his humility as I am.
That sounds racist.
Blah, blah. Yeah. But I've heard him say a lot of things. I never heard him say blah, blah. Or blah, blah, blah.
He's a little more specific.
He's quite specific, yeah. But in the end, what has he done lately? And what does he do for the greater good? Except for his self-interest. Wow. All right, let's take a short break here and we'll come back to the main event.
Sunday
The Saipan Cabrera versus Slammer Shea.
Brunch at Mezcla Bistro in Hagåtña is back.
Come and enjoy Mezcla's true taste of Guam.
At only $28.95, enjoy your Sunday with your friends and family with their free-flowing house mimosa or house draft beer. Open for 2 seatings at 10:30 a.m. and 12:30 p.m.
Let Mezcla serve up your favorite local foods. Call them at 479-2652
or 479-2653 to book a reservation. Limited seating available.
Mezcla reminds everyone to be safe and stay sanitized. Sunday brunch at Mezcla, a true taste of Guam.
Listen to The Point. Any speaker, anytime. Check us out on your FM radio at 93.3, 104.3 HD3, thepoint.gu, Facebook Live, YouTube Live, and tune in. And announcing radio.com. Download the app and hear The Point. Get the latest news, sports, entertainment, and more. On demand. Your phone is digital. Your life is digital. And we are too. 93.3, The Point.
Okay, so if you're out there listening on Facebook, you got it made, or you can listen on Radio.com or the Point app, right? But our radio signal, for some reason, is not going anywhere. I suspect that somebody like Bill Gates is trying to cancel me. Yeah.
That's a good possibility.
Yeah, it's just the same thing. And the same thing they did to Donald Trump, trying to deplatform me here because they don't like the content of Tall Tales. They don't like people who tell the truth. But I'm going to keep doing it anyhow, and I know that we'll get this radio show back on the air. And tell all your friends that depend on the radio that they can go to Jungle Watch tonight, and the show will be on Jungle Watch, and they can watch and listen and do the whole thing, except they won't be able to do comments that I can read over the air. They won't be able to call in, but I suspect tomorrow we're going to be back full strength.
We're also broadcasting live on YouTube.com. Just search your name, Bob Klitzkie.
Yeah.
Of course.
Of course, yeah. Go to YouTube, go to the search block on the top, type in Bob Klitzkie, and as if by magic, you will wind up at Tall Tales, yeah. I think I'm probably a little bit better looking on YouTube than I am on Facebook, but yeah.
They use filters.
Yeah. Okay. So going back here to Cabrera versus Shea. Shea says, I'm absolutely fed up with it, and he needs to be called out. So I have this again, the boxing image, only this time they're in a bar. And Cabrera says he needs to be called out. And he says, I'm going outside, Shea. And they're outside facing off on the main street of Shinbone. And then Cabrera goes on about Shea. He says he's been on Guam for blah, blah, how many years? And he's done all this blah, blah stuff. But in the end, what has he done lately? And what does he do for the greater good except for his self-interest? And I'm sorry, but he needs to be called out. He is a danger to society. He's a menace to society. Wow. Does he sometimes dress up like Freddy Krueger?
Welcome to the hyperbole wars.
Yeah. Clapping back to Dr. Cabrera's defamatory call-out, Shea said Thursday night Cabrera called him yelling profanities and threats on the phone. Hello, is this Dr. Shea? Well, this, F you and F this and F that. And he started yelling at me with profanities and F this and F that. And it was, yeah. Well, Dr. Cabrera ought to get Janella, because they're co-workers at Public Health, to help him Janella his phone calls so he can take that language out of there. He started yelling at me with profanities and F this and F that, and it was very unprofessional, Shea said. I think the island knows me well. Listen, my track record is better than Dr. Cabrera's track record. I have not been in a malpractice suit for the last nearly 25 years. Knock on wood. Why? Because I take good care of my patients. Dr. Cabrera, on the other hand, just Google him, and he's been involved in multiple malpractice suits at GRMC. So if we talk about track records of who's more dangerous to society, he really needs to take a look in the mirror. But when you call me a danger to society, that's a defamation lawsuit all ready to happen. So any doctor out there who's going to accuse me of being a danger to society better prepared for a defamation lawsuit, because I am no danger to society. I have not killed anybody. Here, my record speaks for itself. Dr. Cabrera, along with a few other physicians, are penning a letter of complaint directly to the chair of the Guam Board of Medical Examiners. Oh, that's heavy. You remember how they lowered the boom on Vince Okamoto? Yeah, they're still debating what to do when they summon someone in for punishment and he doesn't arrive. All right, let's take a break for that big halftime show.
The Point is KUSG, Hagåtña, Guam, 93.3 FM and 104.3 HD3.
The COVID relief bill passes. I'm Mary Corsetti, Fox News. The Senate passed President Biden's nearly $2 trillion coronavirus relief package on Saturday. The final vote was 50-49, with all Democrats voting in favor of the bill and all Republicans voting against it. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer speaking.
When you only have 50 votes, you need every member to come to an agreement, and we have diverse members, from Bernie Sanders to Joe Manchin. But to the credit, every one of my members realized that failure was not an option, that the crisis is so great that we need the help. And that is why we were able to do this.
The bill authorizes $1,400 checks to millions of low and middle income Americans, provides yearly child tax benefits, boosts unemployment payments for workers still out of a job, and ramps up vaccine manufacturing and distribution. Meanwhile, roughly 1 year into the pandemic, and some states are rolling back COVID restrictions. Speaking Sunday on CBS's Face the Nation, President Biden's chief medical advisor, Dr. Anthony Fauci, weighs in on when people can expect a return to normalcy.
We just need to hang in there a bit longer. We will be pulling back on these mitigation methods. It's not going to be this way indefinitely. We want to get those levels of virus very low, and then we will have much easier time to safely get the economy and all the other things that we want to be normal.
The governors of Texas and Mississippi recently lifting face mask mandates, with businesses allowed to return to full capacity. And Sunday was the 56th anniversary of Bloody Sunday, when civil rights pioneers were beaten by authorities upon crossing the Edmund Pettus Bridge in Selma, Alabama.
I know we will all mourn and miss him every day. But friends, I am here to tell you that his spirit lives inside of all of us, and we know that.
Vice President Kamala Harris addressed a virtual service, speaking about the memory of Congressman John Lewis, who led the march in 1965. America is listening to Fox News.
When's the last time you looked at your homeowner's insurance?
We buy a homeowner's policy and never give it another thought until something happens. Life brings changes, and our coverage needs can change. The smart thing to do is get the answers and level up our insurance to make sure we're totally protected.
That's the Insurance Extra Point. Get out there and make something good happen today by calling Guahan Insurance Services at 475-1162 or visit us at the Camacho Landmark Center in Tamuning.
Half a day. This is Jade Uggan from Security Title, and in celebration of Tomorrow Month, here is a tip on dealing with your land. You might be thinking of giving part of your property to your child or another family member. Once you have subdivided the property and recorded the map, you will also need to record the deed transferring the title. Just drawing the map is not enough to make sure they actually own the land. Protehi I Tanonu. When it comes to your family land, call the professionals at Security Title. We are here to help.
The two top Democrats in New York's legislature withdrew their support for Governor Andrew Cuomo amid mounting allegations of sexual harassment and undercounting COVID-19 deaths in nursing homes. It comes after Cuomo had said earlier Sunday he would not step down. Cuomo's workplace conduct has been under intense scrutiny in recent days, as several women have accused him of inappropriate behavior. Plus, a party turns to mayhem near a Colorado University campus.
A huge gathering that numbered 500 to 800 people at its peak near the University of Colorado in Boulder turned into a violent confrontation with police, in which 3 police officers were hurt. People flooded the streets in an area known as the Hills Saturday night and were told to leave through bottles, rocks, and other objects at police and firefighters. And police used tear gas and a SWAT team to break up the crowd. The local district attorney says that wasn't a party, but criminal acts. Authorities will seek criminal charges. Salchi and Grasso, Fox News.
And despite the coronavirus pandemic, Daytona Beach's annual Bike Week has brought tens of thousands of motorcyclists to the city, and few of them are wearing masks. The city made a bargain with its bars, 60% capacity indoors in return for the permits necessary for temporary outdoor sales and entertainment. The Daytona Chamber of Commerce estimates up to 400,000 people will attend the 10-day event, down from the normal 500,000. And in sports, a pair of players in the Cleveland Indians organization have been placed in isolation after violating baseball's COVID policy.
Indians manager Terry Francona said Sunday that third baseman Jose Ramirez and outfielder Franmil Reyes were sent back to their temporary homes near the team's spring training complex to isolate after the pair violated the league's COVID protocols. Reyes told the organization Saturday that he and Ramirez had gone out to dinner and ate indoors at a restaurant, violating league policy. The pair will remain in isolation while the team awaits word from the league on when they will be allowed to return.
That's Fox's Ryan Mayer. I'm Mary Corsetti, and this is Fox News.
Half a day, this is Josh here at APL. Our expertise and extensive network can help you grow your business and reach out to more global markets. As a responsible carrier, APL is also committed to a sustainable future, whether it's protecting the environment or investing our efforts in giving back to the community. Our dedicated teams in Guam, Saipan, and on U.S. mainland are here to support you. Call 588-4651 or visit www.apo.com.
The vaccine is officially here, and we aren't just talking about the COVID vaccine, but a financial vaccine at Bank Pacific. We may not be doctors, but we can help you with your financial health. Whether to take advantage of today's crazy low rates, or just a local bank that has your back. At Bank Pacific, we want to help make 2021 your best year yet. Because for 66 years, where others put branches, we place roots, and we're rooting for you. Equal housing lender, member FDIC.
Listen to The Point. Any speaker, anytime. Check us out on your FM radio at 93.3, 104.3 HD3, thepoint.gu, Facebook Live, YouTube Live, and tune in. And announcing radio.com. Download the app and hear The Point. Get the latest news, sports, entertainment, and more. On demand. Your phone is digital. Your life is digital. And we are too. 93.3, The Point.
Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Guahan Insurance Services.
Muhammad Ali, Joe Frazier, Joe Louis, Billy Conn, some of the great fights of the last century. This century we have Saipan Cabrera versus Schlamershey. And it's a knockdown dragout. So let's see, where was I here with my calling the fight? Yeah, Cabrera, along with a few other physicians, are penning a letter of complaint directly to the chair of the Guam Board of Medical Examiners. So what do you think? Tar and feathers? The rack? More than likely. This is something that's going to go to the Guam Board of Medical Examiners, his conduct and actions, and he will be held accountable. And now this is now my mission, Cabrera said. Cabrera now has a mission. Oh, what's that sound I hear? It's kind of a rattling. Oh, it's Tom Shea shaking in his boots. Because Dr. Cabrera now he is a man with a mission. He's going to call out Tom Shea. How could anybody think that he could go for 25 years, stay on this island and with his blah, blah, and his blah, blah, and his blah, blah? Well, he's got a problem now because his conduct and actions will be held accountable, and this is now my mission, Cabrera said, because it threatens public safety. Yeah, maybe we could get Dr. Cabrera to whisper in Steve Ignacio's ear, talking about things that threaten public safety. Cabrera compared Shea's memes and social media complaints to former President Donald Trump's negative impact and influence on Twitter. Boy, I'll tell you, Cabrera is really hauling out the heavy artillery here, isn't he? Now he's comparing Tom Shea to President Donald Trump and Twitter.
Maybe Kaleo Moylan hired him too.
Wow. Yeah. And then back to Shea. I think to compare me to President Trump and Twitter, that is no comparison at all, Shea said. I will criticize public health because I see inconsistency in policy. They are open to criticism, and as far as the memes go, I don't have time to create those memes. Those memes are created by many of my patients. Well, that makes it his fault then, right? Yeah. It was unclear if Cabrera plans to ask the board to revoke Shea's medical license, as he did want to provide specific details on what will be stated in the complaint. He didn't want to provide any specific details. Either way, Shea is not worried. This is personal for him. He's going to make it personal. He's going to go and get me, Shea said. He is going to make it his mission to get me right then and there. You know, this is not somebody that is focusing on facts or things like that. He's making personal attacks. But I'm not here to get Dr. Cabrera. If he's out personally to get me right there, and then the Guam board should read it very clearly that this is a personal attack and a witch hunt. Why, those two guys, huh? Well, I have to score the fight, and I don't think Cabrera won a single round. Cabrera has found several ways to cast himself as a victim, so that as you're listening to this, you're all saying, oh, poor Dr. Cabrera. Why is Tom Shea being so mean to him? I don't blame him. I'm glad he's taking up that mission. He's going to get Dr. Tom Shea for all that blah, blah, and blah, blah.
You know, from the bleachers here, it looked like some of those bruises were self-inflicted.
Yeah, it could very well be. Okay, I'm scoring this fight. Tom Shea by a unanimous decision. As I hold up Tom Shea's hand. Yeah. Boy, oh boy.
That's an interesting note to see that so far we see people taking action with the Guam Medical Board for grievances of name calling.
Exactly.
And not for grievances of malpractice.
Yeah, and David Lebowski, according to David Lebowski, they won't give him the time of day. So I guess it's like anonymous letters. If you write a letter to a public official and give it to the media, so what? Ho-hum. But if it's an anonymous letter, the letter was anonymous. Yeah, and there was a complaint. There was a complaint to the Guam Board of Medical Examiners about a doctor who committed serious malpractice, but he didn't say anything to anybody about it, so the board didn't entertain it. The next day, a doctor did the same thing, but insulted someone. And the board is going to take that up as soon as they can get the doctor to appear before him. Yeah, it seems like rather than the Guam Board of Medical Examiners, it should be the Guam Board of Doctors' Manners, at least according to Dr. Shea and the supporters of Gemma Manglugna out at Public Health and Secret Services. Okay, let's move right along here. I've got a pretty long piece here dealing with. Wait a minute. I've got one more local item here before I get to that. I've got the Attorney General versus the ACLU. And the background here is that a couple of weeks ago, two Honolulu doctors, Bliss Kaneshiro and another one with a really strange name, Shandini Radu and Bliss Kaneshiro, backed by the American Civil Liberties Union, sued that same Board of Medical Examiners and the Attorney General over a couple of our local statutes. And and the news that came out Saturday was that Sunday, a partial case, the abortion case is partially settled. Now I'm going to unpack that a little bit for you here. It says, abortion case partially settled. Arguments continue March 18 on second contested law. The parties in an abortion lawsuit have reached what plaintiffs are calling a partial settlement. The district court approved the joint agreement on March 5. The settlement ensures that one of two laws challenged in the filing, a 1978 law that requires abortions be performed in a clinic or hospital, cannot be used to restrict access to medication abortion, according to a press release from the American Civil Liberties Union. The lawsuit contended that two local laws blocked access to legal and safe abortions on the island. It was filed on behalf of two Guam-licensed doctors, Shandini Radu and Bliss Kaneshiro, both board-certified OBGYNs based in Hawaii. They're seeking to provide abortion medication via telemedicine. The Office of the Attorney General filed a response in February denying the allegation that the local law, 9 GCA 31, Section 31.20, prohibits the prescription, delivery, and or receipt of abortion medication outside a qualified physician's adequately equipped medical clinic or outside a hospital operating in the United States. That's what the statute says. The case is expected to continue March 18 with arguments on the second law challenged in the suit, which prevents patients from using telemedicine to obtain certain state-mandated information prior to abortion, the release states. So let me just stop here and explain a little bit. The 9 GCA 31.20 was the statute that said that an abortion has to be performed in a doctor's office. And the ACLU said, well, that was fine back in 1978. We didn't have RU 484 then. Now we do. So we don't want to be prescribing RU 84, using telemedicine and be prosecuted because we didn't actually have the patient in our office at the time we were doing that. The AG has stipulated and said, no, we're not going to prosecute. That's not what it means. We're not going to prosecute for that. And that was the basis for the stipulation to dismiss that part of the case. The other statute that was being challenged is 10 GCA 2418.1. And 2418 is a long statute, and what it requires is that before a doctor perform an abortion, he or someone must sit down with the patient and go through a booklet that describes just about everything you ever wanted to know about abortion but didn't know where to look. And then the patient has to sign a form that, can I use she here? I guess I better not, huh? Even though we're talking about an abortion.
I hope so.
Yeah.
I mean, it'd be kind of uncomfortable if it was a...
If it weren't a she, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to stick my neck out a little bit. The patient has to sign that she got these materials. I suppose a whole tranny, there's probably going to be trannies out there flattening my tires by the time I get out of here because I didn't use the correct pronoun, they. And then the doctor also has to sign. So in a sense, you could call it an informed consent law. Now, if you've ever had a doctor do anything to you, if a doctor were going to give you a haircut, he'd make you fill out 10 pages of papers and sign and put your bloody thumbprint and all that kind of stuff. So patients always consent to what doctors do. Because if a doctor were to to operate on a patient without the patient's consent, technically that's a battery. It's an unprivileged touching. So there's always that consent, but for abortion, this takes the consent a little bit farther. And it has to be it provides for a knowing and intelligent consent. Patient really understands what they are getting involved with. So that part of the statute was left alone. Okay, and then of course the ACLU has to take their victory lap. This is an important victory for reproductive freedom in Guam. Reproductive freedom. Yeah, the women could stop the reproductive process with a pill. Said Alexa Colby Molinas, senior staff attorney at the ACLU Reproductive Freedom Project. I used to admire the ACLU. They used to represent unpopular defendants. They used to take on hard cases, like they represented the Jehovah's Witnesses. But now they're just as far left as the lefties in the Democrat Party. They're just a wing of the Democrat Party. Okay, then Alexa Colby Molinas goes on to say, everyone should be able to get safe, legal, affordable abortion care in their communities, no matter where they live. So if I were to live, say, at 50 miles from Nome, Alaska, a person 50 miles should be able to get an abortion just by snapping their fingers. Everyone should be able to get safe, legal, affordable abortion care in their communities, no matter where they live. There's still work to do to ensure that people in Guam can access the care they need without unnecessary obstacles. But we have taken an essential step forward today. Attorney General Levin Camacho, based on his authority to prosecute all offenses against the laws of Guam, and the members of the Guam Board of Medical Examiners, based on their authority to punish people with bad manners, and their authority to administer disciplinary action against doctors, were named as defendants in the lawsuit in their official capacity. Abortion on Guam has been a hotly contested issue for decades. There have been local religious-based groups that have publicly protested abortion and called for its complete ban. About a week ago, residents held signs in front of the governor's office in Adelup protesting laws that allow abortion on Guam. The ACLU contends that when Dr. William Freeman, the last of the abortion doctors on Guam, closed his practice in 2018, women and girls who wanted to end unwanted pregnancies have not had access to safe and legal abortions on the island. Adelup made an effort to bring in doctors who, among other areas of the practice, perform abortions, but to no avail. That was Calamity Jane's initiative. You remember that, Jose? The ACLU contends that a lack of local abortion access has created an untenable situation for women in Guam. Travel to Hawaii for care typically requires a multi-day journey for a cost over $1,000. During the Wuhan virus pandemic, these burdens were only heightened, the press release states, forcing people to take such an extended off-island trip just to get the care they need. In other words, to make that long off-island trip just to get an abortion jeopardizes the confidentiality of their abortion decision. Now, why would it have to be confidential? If you have a baby, it's not confidential, right? And
you're not supposed to mention the baby.
You're not supposed to mention it. You know. Yeah, and if this is really reproductive health that we're talking about, it's just another event in reproductive health. What's this confidentiality stuff? The ACLU argues that restrictive laws disproportionately harm people of color and people with low income. Of course, you got to throw that in there, right? You got to always work that angle in there somewhere. In Guam, the burdens posed by these laws fall most heavily on Chamorro. And there's a SIC here in the article, SIC, meaning we know it's a mistake, but we're printing it anyhow. And the mistake is that they spelled Chamorro, Chamorro. That's the ACLU for you. Yeah, mostly heavily on Chamorro people.
See, yeah. They didn't mention the baby.
No.
Who's harmed?
Most heavily on the Chamorro people. Well, of course that's true, because the statistics that we're familiar with show that a solid majority of abortions are performed on women who present themselves as Chamorro. So, yeah, it does fall most heavily on Chamorros, the babies that are aborted in the process. Moreover, rates of poverty, poor health, and domestic violence and sexual assault in Guam are among the highest in the United States. And the reason for that is because women can't get abortions. Yeah, if you don't have any kids, you know, if there were no kids at all, Jose, there wouldn't be any juvenile delinquency. Did you know that?
Yeah.
There would be no juvenile delinquency.
Still trying to follow that thread.
Yeah. Moreover, rates of poverty, poor health, and domestic violence and sexual assault in Guam are among the highest in the United States, the press release states. The press release states that years of research and experience show the medications used for medication abortion can safely and effectively prescribed through telemedicine. In addition, using telemedicine for medication abortion can reduce abortion and reduce barriers to abortion care, particularly in under-resourced areas, and for some patients allows them to obtain abortion care where they feel safest and have the most privacy. The plaintiff stated, "This victory would not have been possible without decades of advocacy led by Chamorro women to safeguard access to safe and legal abortion in Guam," said Vanessa L. Williams, an attorney in Guam and co-counsel in the case. Well, I think Vanessa Williams is about to step over the line here. Attorneys, everyone who has a non-frivolous claim has a right to counsel, has a right to competent counsel. And part of being a lawyer is knowing that there may be times when you're going to have to defend an unpopular client. You know, even Charles Manson had counsel. And so long as people realize that, then we should not try the lawyer along with the client. The fact that a lawyer represented a serial killer doesn't mean you hold him to blame for those murders. But if the lawyer becomes an advocate for the cause of the client, then at least maybe I'm the only one, but I see it a little differently. And this is what Vanessa Williams said. "This victory would not have been possible without decades of advocacy led by Chamorro women to safeguard access to safe and legal abortion in Guam," said Vanessa L. Williams, an attorney in Guam and co-counsel in the case. Now, here we go. "It is impossible to separate our choice of whether and when to have children from every other choice in our lives." So let me go back here and point some things out. Who do you think the word "our" refers to? People of Guam, people in general, or women? It has to refer to women. So Vanessa Williams is saying, "It is impossible to separate our choice of whether and when to have children from every other choice in our lives." So this is what she's saying. A woman must make choices in her life. I'll just hypothesize a little bit. Should I go to the university? Should I work on a master's degree? Should I take a promotion at the job? Should I take leave and have a child? Should I raise children, etc.? So Vanessa Williams says, there are choices, and then there's the choice of whether and when to have children. And Vanessa Williams says it's impossible to separate our choice of whether and when to have children from every other choice in our lives. So if you condense that down to the message that she's protecting is this, that if you'd rather do something else, it's okay to kill an innocent, helpless human being. Because I had other choices to make, and this was not the time that I wanted to be a mother. So I decided that I would kill an innocent, helpless human being. Where's Robert Frost when we really need him? The road not taken. But that's what Vanessa Williams says. So to me, this goes beyond advocating for a client. Okay, I'm going to take a short break here, and I've got Phil Flores and another Joe in the green room. I'm going to finish up here with Vanessa Williams, and then we'll take Phil Flores and then another Joe.
The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts of Guam Training.
Hi, I'm Jerry Roberts, and every day on The Ray Gibson Show, I get to comment on the incredibly diverse, fun, challenging, sometimes frustrating, often exciting, but always interesting world of work. I hope you'll be there with us.
You can find daily transcripts of The Extra Point at guamtraining.com. Tune in every weekday morning at 7:20 for The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts. Brought to you by Guahan Insurance Services and First Hawaiian Bank on 93.3 The Point.
Mezcla Bistro welcomes you this Lenten season with some of your favorite seafood specials, house-made especially for you. Try our fisherman's platter, fish tacos, grilled local catch salad, spicy garlic butter shrimp, candied salmon, and even our creamy lobster padka prau pasta. Don't forget to ask about our Lau Lau Sa Island seafood purse. You will not want to miss this limited-time seafood special, open from Monday through Saturday for lunch and dinner in Agana. Call 479-2652 for reservations. Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro, a true taste of Guam.
Okay, so I'm just going to wrap this up here. Once again, Vanessa Williams says, this is great because, you know, a woman has to make choices. One of the choices is whether or not I should kill an innocent, helpless human being so that I can make another choice. Two roads diverge in a wood. I took the one less.
Take.
Yeah. So that's quite a mouthful. Then she goes on to say this. Today we are one step closer to building a community where each of us can participate with dignity and equality. Dignity. There is some dignity in being able to have an abortion. And the same story here. The ACLU is so worried about privacy. Dignity and equality. Well, equality meaning what? That everybody has the same shot at an abortion? That means you or I could get one, I guess. Equality. I think Vanessa L. Williams, I think you need to stick to the law. I don't think public relations is your strong suit here. Okay, I'm going to come back and do an autopsy on the potential tactics and strategy that the AG is using, but I don't want to keep my folks in the green room waiting any longer. Good afternoon, Phil.
I'm doing well, RK. But I'm calling. I just sent you a little message because if I heard correctly, you said the Board of Medical Examiners is part of the settlement with ACLU.
It was, right? According to this article, it was the defendants. They were the defendants.
Yeah, but so when I saw that there was a partial settlement, I didn't realize GBME was one of the defendants. But when I saw that there was a partial settlement, I said, who's making these partial settlements on behalf of the people that go on? And I'm hoping they're not saying the Guam Board of Medical Examiners is doing it because we haven't talked about it at all. We haven't met. Like I said, when you mentioned that today, it was the first time I've heard that.
Yeah. Well, the board...
And I'm board chair, vice chair.
Yeah. As I understand it, the board was sued, members were sued in their official capacities.
Okay.
So if they're sued in their official capacities, they're nominal defendants. So if the Attorney General wanted to settle on behalf of nominal defendants, I expect that he has complete authority to do that.
Okay.
But as a matter of common sense and good public relations, you shouldn't have to find out about it on Tall Tales, which is a really good place to find out about things.
Yeah, you find out a lot of things on Tall Tales.
Yeah.
You know, I hope I haven't been not being ignorant, but I wasn't even aware that we were part of the suit. That even in our nominal positions. I was not aware.
Yeah. Well, once again, communications goes a long way in these kinds of matters because, you know, the Attorney General ought to stop and think is the last thing that he needs is having disgruntled members of the Board of Medical Examiners starting up another issue dealing with this lawsuit, which is going to be, talked about anyhow. So I guess, the fix for everybody, Phil, is tell the guys at the Board of Medical Examiners, make sure you tune in to Tall Tales every afternoon at 4.
No, because you have a good sponsor.
That's it. It's a dynamite combination.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, because I could have called into Xenia Pacina, who runs the HLPO, and she wasn't aware of it either.
Uh-huh.
So she was going to check and get back to me.
Okay, well, in this case, Phil, you rooted out the truth.
Sure. Yes, we did. And thank you very much.
Okay, Phil, good talking to you.
Talk to you soon.
All right, who have I got on line 2 here?
It's not Joe. It's not real Joe.
It's another Joe. How many Joes can dance on the head of a pin, I wonder?
All of them.
Depends on the size of the. Man, you got me stumped there, Bob.
All right. First of all, I'm not even sure that another Joe can dance.
Barely.
Mm-hmm. Well, go ahead. What did you want to tell me, another Joe?
Okay, go, Bob. So this seems like the ACLU? They're attempting to rewrite the narrative as to what the situation or the conditions used to be and what they are. So they're saying that only now they're having the right to do all these things they didn't have the right before as women. And I think that this pro-life movement here in Guam was pretty much with women from the start. A lot of my elders were women, and they were very much pro-life. So I think we need to address that issue, and I think it emphasizes that our Christian pro-life women are priceless, and that the expression that I want to use is Bill O'Reilly used to have this show that I don't know if it's still on. It was called the No Spin Zone.
Yeah.
And we say the spin stops here. And so our women leaders, our Christian pro-life leaders that are women, I think they're priceless, and they're going to be instrumental to stopping this spin of the narrative. What do you think about?
Well, to get the ACLU to stop the spin in the narrative is a pretty tall order. They're deeply entrenched. They're well-funded. They're hard left. And as you know, our country is turning hard left as we sit here and talk. And we don't seem to be getting enough people interested in reversing the trend. So, but I agree with your position, certainly. It's a pretty easy way to take a country down by killing its babies. That's exactly what we're doing. What is it, 60 million since 1973, Jose?
Over almost 70 million.
Almost 70 million babies have been killed since 1973.
Okay, Bob, thanks for your time. I'll just keep listening, and I just want to emphasize our Christian pro-life lady leaders are priceless. Thank you very much. All right, take care, Bob.
Okay, another Joe.
And let's not forget, the senator who introduced the bill back in 1990 was Senator Elizabeth Areola.
Yes.
Very much so a Chamorro female leader.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I haven't been following this issue very long, considering how long I've been here, but I don't ever remember, there being a strong pro-abortion movement on Guam, even after Roe versus Wade. Certainly not before. So like Michael Bavacqua comes along and says, well, Chamorro women strong, decisive, etc. No, just dead wrong. But it's classic. The rewriting of history to flesh out your narrative, so you don't have to just stand with an unsupported narrative. But well, there's historical precedent for this, and like Vanessa Williams, this victory would not have been possible without decades of advocacy led by Chamorro women. Yeah. Okay, so a little bit of analysis of what the Attorney General did. He dismissed the part of the statute that says you got to do an abortion in a doctor's office or in a hospital. You could interpret that section of the law in two different ways. You could say abortion, you construe that word broadly. If it's an abortion, it doesn't matter what kind of an abortion it is. You got to do it in the doctor's office. If there were some kind of pill that you could take that would induce the abortion, you got to do it in a doctor's office or in a hospital. Or you could take the position that the ACLU and ultimately the Attorney General took, which was that statute was enacted in 1978. At that time, only medical abortions were possible. Only surgical abortions were possible. There were no medical abortions. And since the popping of the pill in your mouth is not the abortion, you could make an argument that the statute doesn't reach that. And apparently that's the position the Attorney General took. So I think this is probably where the personal views of the Attorney General come in. If you had a really strong anti-abortion Attorney General, he might have taken the first position. A really strong pro-abortion Attorney General, the opposite position. Or it could be that the Attorney General has a tactical reason for making the decision that he made. And that could be this, that the other statute that's involved is 10 GCA, 3218, I think. 0.1, yeah. And that's the one that I label as an informed consent law. It's drawn out, and it says that no doctor can perform an abortion unless a piece of literature, a pamphlet, is provided to the patient, and the patient understands the pamphlet, signs for it, and the doctor signs. So in order to perform an abortion, the steps have been put in place so that the patient understands the abortion. And I can see where that would make good sense. I would not be surprised if women are sometimes coerced into abortions by men without really quite understanding all of the ramifications of what they're doing. They just know that they're going to solve a problem today. So I think that's a good law, and without being a constitutional scholar on cases like Planned Parenthood versus Casey, which basically overruled Roe and did away with the 3 trimesters and all of that stuff, and just said that up until the time that a baby would be able to survive outside its mother's body, an abortion, a doctor and a patient can decide to have an abortion. There's another case called Carhart that gets in there. So the holding in those cases said that the state can't place undue burdens on a woman's ability to get an abortion. And the courts have been pretty flexible about what kind of burdens, so-called burdens, and I think this one will pass. I think this one passes constitutional muster. And I think there's a pretty good chance that the Attorney General will prevail on this at trial or in a motion for summary judgment. So if that's the case, even with the telemedicine abortion, the patient is going to have to come in and sit down in a doctor's office, get the pamphlet, sign for the pamphlet. The doctor's got to sign for the pamphlet. So it's probably the most important part of the statute. Now, if I were prosecuting this case, if I were a lawyer for ACLU, I would put 3120 and 10 GCA 2418.1 together, and I say the two together. You know, it's a classic case of the whole being greater than the sum of its parts. The two statutes together make it really difficult for someone to get an abortion. So by getting rid of the perhaps least defensible part of the case and concentrating on the 10 GCA part of the case, I mentioned in my program notes, this may be a gambit. And all of you chess players out there understand this, but in a gambit, a chess player sacrifices a piece in order to gain position on the board. You sacrifice one of your pawn or something in order to maneuver your pieces and gain a position on the board. So what some would say is caving in. I haven't fully decided whether the stipulation is a cave-in on the telemedicine part of it, or whether it is a strategic gambit which perhaps should be applauded. And I think I'm probably going to reserve judgment to see how vigorously the Attorney General defends on that other count of the lawsuit. It could perhaps work out in our favor. Okay, so much for that. And let's head for Churchill Downs, Jose.
76 Circle K, the Subaki Tower, and Spa Ayalam bring you another staycation. We are celebrating Mom and all she does. Win a 2-night stay at the luxurious Subaki Tower, get pampered by Spa Ayalam, and enjoy a delicious lunch and dinner at Casa Oceano. All you have to do is purchase $35 or more in 76 fuel and enter to win a staycation fit for a mom. The more you gas, the more chances of winning. Visit 76circlekguam.com or any Circle K location for more information.
Hey, big news! Now you can listen to The Point on radio.com. And radio.com gives you so much more. Local news stations give you what's going on in your community. Get national news from CBS, CNN, or Fox News Radio. Take a break with one of the hundreds of music, sports, and talk stations. Love podcasts? Radio.com has thousands of true crime, comedy, kids and family podcasts, and more. Listen anytime, anywhere. On your PC, smart speakers, and a variety of connected devices. Or download the Radio.com app now from the App Store or Google Play.
Okay, so here we are, Churchill Downs, Louisville, Kentucky. It's not Derby Day, but we're going to start the home stretch from here. We're going to cross the finish line in about 9 minutes, putting it into another exciting, educational, elucidating episode of Tall Tales. And the last item on the card here is social justice newspeak, as made known to us by George Orwell. Social justice newspeak versus English. And this is an article that I picked up from a site called Law and Liberty. It's a good site. Translating social justice newspeak. Opponents of our new social justice dispensation often find themselves at a rhetorical disadvantage. Social justice advocates desire to replace, quote, oppressive, structural, and personal norms with a new, more welcoming culture. Anyone who opposes this transformation is, by definition, unwelcoming. Who wants to be defined as unwelcoming? The rhetorical disadvantage of dissidents is only compounded by the development of new code words for social justice, like diversity or inclusion. Social justice warriors win battles simply through deploying certain terms, since this language cows and confuses their opponents. That's why on Tall Tales we have some kind of strict strict rules about words. We don't change words and pronunciations just because it's easier. And if I refer to a single person as they, it's because I'm making fun of the social justice warriors and their choice of pronouns. So they define three terms here: equity, as you were, diversity, equity, and inclusion. Yeah, those are all words you probably think you know what they mean. Diversity, yeah, I know what that means. Equity, etc. Well, the new definitions: equity. Social justice ideology starts with equity. Susan Rice, lead of the White House Domestic Policy Council, has made achieving equity the centerpiece of the new administration. Equity means creating equality of outcome among recognized identity groups. This is accomplished through the redistribution of society's resources and honors as a mean to correct real historical injustices, such as slavery, and inequalities traceable to what are perceived today's society's implicit oppressive infrastructure. As the Washington Report has it, quote, equity achieves procedural and outcome fairness by distributing and prioritizing resources to those who have been historically and currently marginalized. Inequalities that seem to reflect a disadvantage to a protected identity group are ipso facto evidence of the need for remedy. Outcome fairness is equal outcomes. When advocates say equity, one must retrain one's ears to hear the following. All disparities are traceable to discrimination or institutional racism and must be remedied by redistribution, such as reparations, or other actions like abolishing meritocratic standards that produce disparities or abolishing the police. That's what equity means. As Washington's Equity Task Force defines it, equity requires transformative work to disrupt and dismantle historical systems, a far cry from English common law indeed, where equity was a basis for the stable execution of the rule of law. So, you might think, well, isn't equality something we should strive for? Shouldn't the law and the government treat all persons equally? Now, if you say that, if you stand up and say that, I'm all for equality. I want the government to treat everybody the same. I want everybody to be treated equally. You know what everybody out there in the audience is going to do? Racist, get him out of here. You're a racist. I'm only exaggerating a little bit because that is not equity. And that's what the social justice warriors want. If the social justice warriors ran a track meet before the starter pistol ever went out, there would be people out there on the track measuring different finish lines so that everybody would get to the finish line at the same time. You run as fast as you can, and everybody gets to the finish line at the same time. Except it wouldn't quite be that way because some groups would get to the finish line faster than others. In order to have equity for the favored groups, then you obviously have to have inequality for the others. And this thing about one of the things is abolishing meritocratic standards to provide for equity. No more graduate record exam. And I keep reading about these cities that have high-performance high schools for really smart kids. They now have open enrollment. No more graduate record exams. And then, of course, there's the Oregon curriculum that we talked about the other day, where in math class, you don't show your work. And there's been a lot of scholarship on that. Mathematics is racist. And it just perpetuates white supremacy, because with the emphasis on getting the right answer and showing your work, that's obvious white supremacy. So this is what when you hear the word equity, that's what it means. The fact that it sounds like equality, don't let that distract you, because it means something totally different. Diversity. How many times during a week do you hear, our strength is our diversity? Well, diversity can be a strength if it's diversity of talents, diversity of opinions, diversity of abilities, etc. But when it's racial diversity, such as promoted here by the cultural Marxists, it is not a strength. It's a horrible weakness. And we're seeing that weakness manifest itself all throughout the country, as we saw the country burn last summer. The social justice dispensation famously celebrates diversity. It considers diversity a strength. Its definitions of diversity are long, meandering, and self-contradictory. Diversity refers to different racial or cultural identities rooted perhaps in physical difference. Different identities are products of power structures that make men and women, or blacks and whites, different. What sits in front of us are not people with different skin colors or different sexes, but rather products of power structures that pigeonhole aggrieved minorities into this or that identity. Women by patriarchal control. Black men made subordinate through white supremacy. Black women victims of both. When people who are shaped by all these power structures are all present for conversations, the power structure themselves are broken down. Well, I'll spend a little more time with this tomorrow. It's where we are. Okay, well, for those who tune in on Facebook, thanks for tuning in. We're going to be on the radio tomorrow.
The Point is KUSG, Hagåtña, Guam, 93.3 FM and 104.3 HD3.
More stimulus is on the way. I'm Mary Corsetti, Fox News. President Biden's $1.9 trillion COVID-19 relief bill passes the Senate by the narrowest of margins and with the support of a key Democrat.
West Virginia Senator Joe Manchin was the swing vote that moved the American Rescue Plan forward by a 50-49 tally with no GOP support. On Fox News Sunday, Manchin said he wasn't willing to sink the bill, but he was going to work with Republicans to craft the best package.
They had input with me, and they knew that, and we worked together, Democrats and Republicans, until the final passage, and then it was more than what maybe they could have voted and supported.
Changes the Senate made to the bill means it must be approved by the House before it goes to the president's desk for a signature. Gernal Scott, Fox News.
And President Biden's chief medical advisor, Dr. Anthony Fauci, predicts how soon before the CDC will release guidelines for those who have been vaccinated from COVID-19.
Well, when you're talking about benchmarks of people who are vaccinated and how a vaccinated person can interact with the other vaccinated person or with unvaccinated people, those guidelines are coming out from the CDC really imminently. I would imagine within the next couple of days. For sure.
Dr. Fauci speaking Sunday on CBS's Face the Nation. Plus, a migration surge continues to flood the U.S.-Mexican border.
The White House says it sent 14 advisors to the U.S. southwest border on Saturday to get a better idea of what's going on the ground. Republicans say that this chaos is all coming because of some of the rollbacks of Trump-era border policies. Now, we know that it was the Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas that led the delegation. Also, there was a domestic advisor, Susan Rice. The White House put out a readout of this trip saying they discussed capacity needs given the number of unaccompanied children and families arriving at our border.
Fox's Mark Meredith. America is listening.